It was an ordinary day, or so it seemed, when the first sign of the alien threat appeared in Earth's skies. The date was marked on every calendar, August 12th. The entire world watched in a mix of disbelief and awe as a formation of massive, imposing ships, darker than the deepest night, appeared just beyond the moon's orbit. There were hundreds of them, perhaps thousands, each ship a monolithic structure of twisted metal and alien technology. They dwarfed Earth's own satellites and space stations, their silhouettes casting ominous shadows across the stars. The suddenness of their appearance left the entire planet frozen in place, every nation's radar and communication systems blaring with alarms. The world's military powers scrambled into action. At first, it was unclear if the ships were hostile or simply explorers, but one thing was certain. The sheer scale of their presence was nothing short of overwhelming. The ships didn't follow the expected orbital paths or human understanding of space travel. They moved with a fluidity that seemed unnatural, almost impossible, their propulsion systems glowing a menacing red. Within hours, the aliens sent their message, broadcasted on every channel, every frequency, every language. The words were simple, stark, and cold. Surrender, Earth. Your defenses are useless against us. It wasn't just the words themselves that stung, but the tone and arrogance that exuded from every syllable. It was clear the aliens had studied Earth and its defenses, and they found them lacking. The language was harsh and direct, but there was a chilling sense of certainty behind it. The invaders seemed to know that no amount of military preparation on Earth's part would make any difference. This was not a request, it was a decree. The leaders of the world gathered in emergency meetings, their faces grim as they studied the data coming from military satellites. The alien fleet was massive, far beyond anything Earth had ever encountered. The ships seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, and their technological prowess was far superior to anything humans had ever developed. If these were just explorers, they were exploring with an unshakable belief that they owned the galaxy, and Earth was just the next planet in line for their conquest. But amid the fear and panic, something else began to stir. People all around the globe started to speak with a unified voice, both in private conversations and across social media. Their message was clear: Earth would not surrender. No matter how advanced the aliens were, no matter the odds, humanity would fight. It wasn't just about defending a planet, it was about fighting for their right to exist. Earth's leaders met with scientists, engineers, military strategists, and anyone who could help. The alien ships had appeared out of nowhere, their technology far beyond what humanity had achieved. But Earth had one advantage: it was a species born of survival. Humans had thrived through adversity, adapted to every challenge thrown their way, and now, in the face of annihilation, they would do it again. It was the fear of extinction that pushed Earth's greatest minds to work faster than ever before. Military units mobilized. Every nation began coordinating in ways they never had before, setting aside old rivalries in favor of a common goal. The call to arms was answered by millions, from young pilots eager to defend their homes to engineers working around the clock to reverse engineer the remnants of alien technology Earth had salvaged from previous encounters. And then came the first glimpse of hope. Among the chaos, humanity discovered something in the aliens' transmissions, a pattern, a weakness. There was an opening, however small, but it was enough to give Earth's military planners a glimmer of possibility. Earth's people weren't just going to roll over. They were going to fight back. The aliens' belief in their superiority would be their greatest mistake. In that moment, as the alien ships loomed like dark giants in the sky, humanity stood together, united in the resolve to prove one undeniable truth. No matter how advanced, how powerful, how vast the enemy, Earth would not fall without a fight. The world's response to the alien arrival was nothing short of extraordinary. The moment the message was broadcasted, the entire planet seemed to snap into action. It didn't matter where you were, whether in the bustling cities of New York, the quiet villages of Africa, or the remote landscapes of Siberia. Everyone felt the weight of what was happening. The alien ships hovering just beyond the moon had sent a ripple of fear through every government and every household, but the fear quickly transformed into something else: determination, resolve. World leaders who had spent decades bickering over politics, borders, and resources suddenly found themselves on the same page. The UN called for an emergency summit, with representatives from every nation gathering virtually, and for the first time in history, the differences that once divided them seemed insignificant. Earth was under threat. And this threat was not just military, it was existential. Humanity's military forces were deployed within hours, each nation contributing what they could to the growing global defense effort. Earth's space agencies, NASA, ESA, Roscosmos, CNSA, and others, worked together, coordinating to observe the alien ships and gather intelligence. Satellite arrays scanned the sky for any signs of enemy movement, while ground-based observatories tracked the ship's bizarre energy readings. Every bit of information was valuable, but as the data poured in, one thing became clear: Earth was woefully unprepared. The alien ships were beyond anything humanity had ever dreamed of building. They didn't just hover in place, they pulsed with energy, seemingly able to bend space and time around them. Attempts to communicate with them directly were met with silence, or worse, cryptic messages that only served to deepen the mystery. But in the face of such overwhelming odds, humanity's greatest strength emerged: its ability to adapt, to think on its feet, and to innovate when there seemed to be no hope. Behind the scenes, brilliant minds across the world scrambled to develop new technologies, reverse engineering the little alien technology they'd collected from previous encounters. The human race had always been capable of taking the impossible and turning it into something tangible. Scientists and engineers from every corner of the globe set to work, often side by side with military experts, building prototypes of new weapons, shields, and defensive systems. The task was daunting. Humanity's resources were limited compared to the advanced alien fleet hovering above. But if they were going to fight back, they had to rely on their ingenuity and resourcefulness. And so Earth's best minds began to collaborate, pooling their knowledge and technologies in ways they never had before. In the quiet corners of research labs, engineers began to experiment with alien tech, adapting what they could for human use. Meanwhile, military leaders formulated a strategy, desperate, perhaps, but determined. They studied the alien fleet's behavior, trying to find a pattern, a weakness, anything they could exploit. They couldn't fight power with power. They had to fight with strategy. The people of Earth rallied too. Ordinary citizens, farmers, teachers, office workers, and students. Everyone understood what was at stake. And while some hid in fear, others stepped forward with courage. Volunteers flooded recruitment centers, eager to join the fight, while countless others contributed in ways big and small, building makeshift weapons, fabricating technology, offering their skills wherever needed. Some were drafted into training, becoming soldiers in a war they never thought they would have to fight. The sense of unity was palpable. It was as if the planet itself had recognized the gravity of the situation and had found strength in its collective will to survive. The internet, once a source of division, now became a platform for shared knowledge, innovation, and support. People from different nations began to communicate with one another, exchanging ideas and strategies, offering whatever help they could. By the end of the week, a plan began to take shape. Earth's military forces, equipped with the new technology, began to reorganize. They would not charge headlong into battle. They would wait, prepare, and use every advantage they could. It wasn't just about fighting for land or resources. It was about survival. Every ship, every soldier, every scientist, and every civilian now understood the stakes. The aliens had come with one purpose: to conquer, but they had underestimated humanity. They thought they were facing an easy target, a weak species. What they didn't realize was that Earth's greatest strength was its people, resourceful, resilient, and unyielding. And now, united in a common cause, humanity was ready to face whatever the alien invaders threw their way. The calm before the storm lasted only a few days. Tensions mounted, and then, the first strike came. The Vareth Dominion had grown impatient with Earth's defiance. No more warnings. No more posturing. Their massive warships moved with terrifying speed, their advanced weaponry locking onto key targets across Earth's major cities and military outposts. The aliens weren't here to negotiate. They were here to break humanity's will, and they would do it with overwhelming force. The attack was swift and brutal. Beam weapons cut through the sky, lancing down from the alien ships and vaporizing entire cities in mere moments. The sky above Europe burned as an alien dreadnought fired a concentrated energy beam into London, obliterating the iconic skyline. In Asia, the Vareth tore through Tokyo, leaving behind a charred landscape. Chaos erupted worldwide as people screamed in panic, trying to escape the devastation. But Earth wasn't entirely unprepared. The military response was swift, though far from perfect. At the United Nations Command Center, the Global Defense Network sprang to life, sending orders to military forces across the world. Earth's space fleets, though smaller, had been waiting for this moment. The first wave of human ships, clumsy by comparison to the alien dreadnoughts, launched from their respective launch zones. They were packed with modified technology and a relentless determination that no alien technology could measure. The first battle took place in low orbit, just outside Earth's atmosphere. The humans had decided to meet the aliens in space, where their numbers could be more of an advantage. With limited time to prepare, Earth's fleet was smaller, but it was built for agility, a sharp contrast to the slow, towering alien warships. A coalition of pilots from different nations piloted the ships, each one of them handpicked for their training and tenacity. As they engaged, they quickly discovered that the Vareth were formidable. Their ships were heavily armored, with defensive shields that made even the most advanced human weapons seem like little more than a nuisance. Despite the overwhelming power of the alien fleet, Earth's ships fought with a desperation that the Vareth didn't anticipate. The human fleet was nimble, able to move and evade fire in ways that alien ships couldn't. Their tactics were based on quick hit-and-run strategies, striking at weak points and retreating before the enemy could retaliate. The Vareth were frustrated by this unpredictable style of warfare. The humans weren't fighting like a conventional military. They were fighting like survivors. One of the most incredible moments of the battle came when Captain Leela Park, a fighter pilot with the Earth Defense Force, led a daring attack against an alien destroyer. With her squadron of pilots, she executed a risky maneuver, flying straight toward the heavily shielded alien ship, only to veer off at the last possible second, sending a swarm of missiles into a vulnerable section of its hull. The explosion was massive, sending shockwaves through the surrounding ships. The alien destroyer was disabled, a major victory for Earth. But the humans weren't without their losses. The battle was brutal, and Earth's fleet was overwhelmed by the sheer firepower of the Vareth. Several human ships were torn apart by alien beams, their crews lost in the darkness of space. The Vareth had the upper hand in sheer numbers and strength, but the battle wasn't a complete loss. The human fleet had held its ground longer than. In the wake of the first battle, the Vareth Dominion's confidence began to waver. Although they had decimated several key military targets on Earth, the alien commanders could not ignore the undeniable truth. Humanity was not the weak, defenseless species they had expected. Instead of cowering in fear, humans were proving to be resourceful, creative, and most importantly, unpredictable. The Vareth had underestimated Earth, and now, for the first time since their arrival, there was uncertainty in their ranks. Supreme Commander Rethak stood at the helm of his flagship, the Varak, a colossal vessel capable of decimating entire cities with a single strike. His face, a hardened mask of frustration, betrayed none of his earlier arrogance. His officers were gathered in the command center, analyzing data from the recent battle, their faces drawn and pale. Despite their technological superiority, the humans had fought back in ways they had not prepared for. They had disrupted the Vareth's well-practiced strategies with guerrilla tactics and adaptive maneuvers, leaving their forces scattered and confused. "Commander, our initial assessment was wrong." One of Rethak's senior advisors spoke hesitantly, eyes glued to the holographic displays. "The humans, they don't fight like any species we've encountered before. They are chaotic, yes, but they are coordinated in their chaos. It's as if they have a natural instinct for battle." Rethak clenched his fists, the realization dawning that their initial assessment of humanity had been too simplistic. Earth had always been seen as an insignificant primitive planet. Its civilizations, its technologies, and its military capabilities were considered inferior by the Vareth. But now, the humans were showing something that the aliens had not expected: unity. Every nation, every person, seemed to be contributing to the defense effort in ways that were both creative and relentless. They were not just fighting to win, they were fighting to survive. Back on Earth, humanity was digging in for the long haul. Across the globe, people had rallied around the cause. Governments, military forces, scientists, and civilians had all come together, setting aside old rivalries in favor of one unified purpose. The message from Earth's leadership was clear: no matter how powerful the Vareth were, Earth would never surrender. At one of the global defense hubs, a team of engineers and military officers gathered around a table strewn with alien schematics and human blueprints. Among them was Dr. Emily Hughes, a top scientist who had spent years working on reverse engineering alien technology from past encounters. She had been part of the team that had cracked the encryption on the Vareth's communications, and now she was leading the effort to understand their weapons and defenses. "We can do this," Dr. Hughes said, her voice steady but urgent. "We're not just reverse engineering alien tech, we're innovating on it. This is what humanity does best. We take something and make it our own." Her words seemed to have an electrifying effect on the group. The humans weren't simply copying the alien technology, they were improving upon it, using their ingenuity to find new ways of turning the tide. In a remote lab, engineers worked day and night to adapt human-made technology with alien enhancements, creating weapons, shields, and communication systems that were increasingly effective. But it wasn't just the technology that was evolving, it was the people. Captain Leela Park, one of the brightest pilots in the Earth Defense Force, had quickly become a symbol of human resolve. After the success of her squadron's daring attack on the Vareth destroyer, she was hailed as a hero. But Park wasn't just a symbol, she was a leader, inspiring her fellow soldiers to push their limits. She understood better than anyone that humanity's strength wasn't in its machines or weaponry, it was in its spirit. The human will to fight, adapt, and never give up was the most powerful weapon they had. "I've seen what humans are capable of," she said during a briefing with the military high command. "We may be outmatched in terms of technology, but we're not out of this fight. We're resourceful. We're stubborn. We're going to find a way to turn the tide, because if we don't, there won't be an Earth left to save." Her words echoed the sentiment felt by millions across the globe. Humanity wasn't just surviving, it was rising. People began to mobilize in every corner of the world. Civilians who had never seen a battlefield suddenly found themselves designing and building defensive structures. Students developed algorithms that helped crack alien encryption codes. Farmers were repurposing their land to manufacture weapons. The entire human race was at war, and every single person was contributing in some way, whether they realized it or not. The Vareth were growing increasingly frustrated, and the more they observed humanity, the more they realized that their initial assessment was dangerously wrong. Earth was not a planet of cowards or weaklings. The humans had something that the Vareth could never have predicted: a relentless drive to survive, to push back against the odds, and to innovate in ways that would confound even the most advanced species. As the days passed, Commander Rethak became more convinced that the humans were not only a threat, they were a force to be reckoned with. The Vareth had come to conquer, but they had underestimated what they were truly up against. And now, the Vareth Dominion would have to fight not just a planet, they would have to fight an entire species. As the war raged on, it became clear that Earth's tenacity wasn't merely a survival instinct. It was becoming a weapon in its own right. The Vareth Dominion had not expected this. What they saw as a primitive species was turning out to be a surprisingly capable adversary. Earth's ingenuity was no longer a vague concept, it was a proven reality. Every day, the humans learned more about the alien technology they had stolen, adapting it, tweaking it, and finding ways to use it against its creators. They were turning the tide of war one breakthrough at a time. The alien dreadnoughts, with their immense firepower and impenetrable shields, had seemed like the ultimate challenge. Yet through sheer persistence, Earth's scientists had discovered a subtle vulnerability, a flaw in the way the Vareth's energy shields were calibrated. While they were impervious to conventional weapons, they had a significant weakness to frequency modulation. When exposed to certain wavelengths of energy, their shields began to flicker, temporarily rendering them vulnerable to attack. It was a game-changing discovery. The Vareth hadn't anticipated humans' ability to exploit such a subtle detail. Earth's military immediately adapted, retrofitting fighter craft with new frequency-modulating weapons. What had once seemed like an insurmountable obstacle facing invulnerable ships was now within reach. Captain Leela Park's squadron, now equipped with the new technology, launched their first attack on a Vareth warship, a massive cruiser named Varec 7. As they closed in on the vessel, the new frequency disruptors began to hum with energy, and Park could see the faint distortion in the alien shields. The moment of vulnerability came, an opening they had never had before. "Lock on the target and fire on my mark," Park ordered, her voice steady despite the rush of adrenaline coursing through her veins. The fighter's weapons unleashed a barrage of high-energy blasts, focused precisely on the weakened shields. The Vareth ship shuddered under the assault, its once impenetrable armor beginning to crack. Park's eyes narrowed, and with a single command, she ordered a full assault on the core of the ship. Missiles launched, striking critical points along the cruiser's hull. It was a beautiful, terrifying sight, one of Earth's fighters finally succeeding where human forces had previously faltered. The Vareth cruiser exploded in a burst of fire and debris, the shockwave rattling nearby ships. For the first time, Earth had claimed a definitive victory in the stars. The Vareth fleet, stunned by the sudden loss, hesitated, regrouping to assess what had just happened. Park's squadron had demonstrated something they had never seen before: Earth's ability to adapt in the heat of battle, to evolve on the fly and turn the Vareth's greatest advantage into their greatest weakness. On the ground, the effects of this breakthrough were equally profound. Earth's defense forces, now armed with this new technology, began to strike back against the Vareth's ground forces. Previously, alien soldiers had stormed key human strongholds with near impunity, but now humanity had new tools. Advanced pulse cannons, derived from alien weapons, were proving effective at pushing back the Vareth's infantry. What had once been a battle of overwhelming force in favor of the aliens was now becoming a battle of attrition. At the Global Defense Command Center, military strategists watched with rising optimism. General Mark Turner, the commander of Earth's unified defense, paced in front of the screens, a faint smile tugging at his lips. The momentum had shifted. What had once been an uphill battle was beginning to feel like a fight that humanity could win. The tide was turning in their favor, but they couldn't afford to get complacent. Every victory was hard-earned, and the Vareth would not stop until Earth was theirs. "We've got them on the ropes," Turner said, his voice low but resolute. "But we need to press the advantage. They're a proud species, and pride makes them dangerous. The longer we wait, the more time they have to adapt." And adapt they did. The Vareth, realizing the critical vulnerability in their shields, began developing countermeasures almost immediately. Within days, their ships were outfitted with stronger, more efficient shields that could resist the frequency modulation. The Vareth were not the type to back down. They adapted just as quickly as humans did. The war, once again, became a battle of wits, with each side learning from the other's tactics, improving, evolving, and growing stronger. But for now, Earth had a lead. The victory against Varec 7 had not only struck a blow to the Vareth fleet, but had also done something far more significant. It had shown the galaxy that Earth was no longer a backwater planet to be crushed easily. It was a force to be reckoned with, a planet that, when faced with annihilation, would rise up and fight back, no matter the odds. As Earth's fleet pressed forward, the stakes became higher. The Vareth knew their adversaries were no longer helpless. The war was far from over, but for the first time since the invasion began, the humans knew they had a chance. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for victory. The Vareth Dominion was reeling. Their once unchallenged superiority in the war had been chipped away with every passing day, and now they were being forced to reassess their position in the conflict. The battle at Varec 7 had sent a shockwave through their ranks, a blow to their pride and their belief that Earth's resistance would crumble under pressure. But what the Vareth didn't understand was that every setback, every loss, only fueled the fire within humanity. The more the aliens tried to crush the human spirit, the stronger it became. Earth's leaders knew that the momentum was on their side, but they also understood that the fight was far from over. The Vareth would not give up so easily. They had seen how quickly the aliens adapted to the frequency disruption weapon, and they knew that time was running out before the Vareth could develop countermeasures. But for now, humanity had a window of opportunity. If they could strike hard enough, fast enough, they might be able to end the war before the Vareth regained their footing. General Mark Turner stood before a war room map, staring at the digital readouts of the alien fleet. The Vareth were regrouping, consolidating their forces. They had retreated into deeper space, undoubtedly planning their next move. But Turner could feel the shift in the air. The Vareth had lost their confidence, and in battle, that was often as important as any weapon. If humanity could keep up the pressure, keep forcing the aliens to fight on Earth's terms, victory could be within reach. "We've won a battle," Turner said, addressing the room of military officers and strategists. "But this is not over. If we let them recover, if we give them the time to adjust, they'll come back stronger. This is our chance to hit them when they're weak. We need a full-scale offensive." The plan was bold and risky. Earth's fleet was not as large or as powerful as the Vareth's, but they had one distinct advantage. They had the element of surprise. The alien fleet was scattered, their ships damaged, and their morale shaken. For the first time, Earth had a genuine chance to strike a decisive blow, but it would require every resource humanity had to pull it off. As the offensive was being prepared, Earth's forces made one crucial discovery. One of the captured Vareth vessels, a smaller scout ship that had been left behind after a failed raid on a human outpost, contained a wealth of information. Using the reverse-engineered alien technology they had acquired, the scientists on Earth cracked open the ship's encrypted databanks. What they found was both shocking and promising. The Vareth were not acting alone. Their invasion of Earth was part of a much larger campaign. A campaign to conquer an entire cluster of star systems. The discovery of this larger galactic war plan shifted the stakes even higher. The Vareth were not merely a threat to Earth. They were a threat to all sentient life in their part of the galaxy. The fate of countless worlds hung in the balance, and humanity, once thought to be insignificant, had become the unexpected focal point of a galactic conflict. The news sent ripples through Earth's leadership. They understood now that this wasn't just about protecting their planet, it was about standing up to a much greater evil. They had become the spearhead of a resistance that could one day unite other civilizations in the galaxy against the Vareth Dominion. Captain Leela Park, now recognized as one of Earth's most capable leaders, was tasked with leading the next offensive. Her squadron, which had already become famous for its daring strikes, was ready to strike again, this time at the heart of the Vareth fleet. But Park knew that this would be the most dangerous mission yet. The Vareth were regrouping, and they had not been idle. Their counterattacks would come with full force. As Earth's fleet prepared to launch its assault, Park took a moment to look out at the stars. The weight of responsibility was heavy, but so was the resolve in her heart. They were no longer the underdog. They were the vanguard of the fight for survival, and for the first time since the war began, the humans had something the Vareth didn't: hope. The Vareth were powerful, but they had underestimated the human will to fight, and now that was focused on a single goal: to win. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about freedom, unity, and the chance to protect not only Earth, but every world that the Vareth had set their sights on. The offensive began with a blinding flash of light as Earth's fleet surged toward the heart of the Vareth fleet, ready to deal a blow that could change the course of the war forever. The battle for Earth had reached its breaking point. After weeks of skirmishes, ambushes, and desperate strikes, Earth's forces were ready for the final confrontation. The offensive to dismantle the Vareth Dominion's invasion had begun, and this time, Earth's fleet was not going to retreat or give up. There was no turning back now. Captain Leela Park stood at the helm of the Eclipse, a modified warship that had been outfitted with some of the most advanced human and alien technologies combined. Her squadron was ready, her pilots eager to take the fight to the heart of the Vareth fleet. They had learned to adapt, just as the Vareth had. But Earth's fleet was now an entirely different beast, more agile, more precise, and brimming with the confidence born from each victory. They weren't just fighting for their world anymore. They were fighting for the future of every living creature in their galaxy. The Vareth fleet loomed in the distance, massive and imposing. Their ships were scarred from previous battles, but their firepower was still formidable. As Earth's fleet advanced, the alien ships immediately opened fire, unleashing torrents of energy beams that streaked through space, lighting up the void with flashes of green and red. It was the moment Earth had been waiting for, a chance to strike at the heart of the Vareth Dominion and break their war machine once and for all. "We hit them hard and fast," Park commanded, her voice calm but filled with intensity. "No hesitation. Target their weakest points. We're going to hit them where it hurts." The battle erupted in a fury of energy blasts, missiles, and dogfights. Park's squadron darted through the debris and explosions, expertly weaving through the onslaught of enemy fire. The frequency disruptors they had perfected in previous battles now proved invaluable, rendering the Vareth shields ineffective in key moments. For the first time, Earth's fleet wasn't just fighting back. They were in control, dictating the flow of the battle. But the Vareth were not so easily defeated. Their ships adapted quickly, recalibrating their shields and weapons. Earth's forces had dealt a severe blow to the alien fleet, but the Vareth commanders were far from defeated. They launched a retaliatory strike, unleashing their most devastating weapon yet, a colossal energy pulse capable of wiping out entire fleets in one blow. It was a move born out of desperation, an attempt to turn the tide of battle in their favor. As the pulse approached, Captain Park's eyes widened, the magnitude of the attack impossible to ignore. If that pulse hit, it could destroy the entire fleet, decimating humanity's forces in one fell swoop. "All units, break formation," Park shouted into her comms, her voice urgent. "We need to outrun it, now." The ship scattered, darting in every direction to avoid the incoming pulse. Park's heart raced as she watched the pulse draw closer, its massive energy signature growing brighter with every passing second. For a moment, it seemed like nothing would be able to escape the devastating wave. But then, in an instant, a brilliant idea sparked in Park's mind. She realized that the only way to avoid the pulse was to meet it head-on, using the frequency disruptors as a shield to counteract its energy. "Everyone, follow my lead," Park barked as she veered toward the incoming wave. Her fighter jets followed in formation, aligning their disruptors with precise calculations. "On my mark, we unleash everything we've got." The pulse was nearly upon them when Park ordered the release. The frequency disruptors began to hum, their energy output surging as the ships locked onto the pulse's wavelength. The pulse collided with the disruptor field, and for a moment, the universe seemed to hold its breath. A blinding flash of light filled the space, a cataclysmic burst of energy that tore through the darkness of space. But it wasn't the destruction Earth had feared. Instead, the pulse was scattered, its immense power deflected by the disruptors and rendered harmless. For the first time in the battle, there was silence, a moment of pure, stunned disbelief. The Vereth fleet had lost its ultimate weapon, and with it, the hope of easily crushing humanity's resistance. Earth had just won its most critical victory. The Vereth fleet was in disarray. They had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt and overcome. Now, without their final weapon and with Earth's fleet pushing forward, the Vereth commanders realized they were out of options. General Mark Turner, watching the chaos unfold from his command post on Earth, allowed himself a moment of relief. But he knew that the war was not over yet. The Vereth might be retreating, but they were not a species to surrender easily. Earth's final push was in motion, but it would not be without risks. The Vereth had learned from their mistakes, and they would retaliate. Yet for now, the humans had the upper hand. They had faced the unimaginable, they had fought through the odds, and they had proven that they would not go quietly into the night. Earth had done what was thought to be impossible. They had survived, and now they had a chance to secure their future. The final battle was coming, and Earth was ready to see it through to the end. The Vereth Dominion, once a monolithic force of destruction, was crumbling under the weight of Earth's relentless resistance. Despite their superior technology and advanced strategies, they had underestimated humanity's will to fight. The final battle was at hand, and Earth's forces had one last opportunity to end this war once and for all. Captain Leela Park stood at the bridge of the Eclipse, her eyes scanning the remnants of the Vereth fleet scattered across space. What had been a seemingly invincible force was now a shadow of its former self. The frequency disruptors had crippled their shields, and their ultimate weapon had been turned against them. The Vereth, once so confident in their dominance, were retreating in disarray, but Park knew that they weren't completely beaten. Their pride was their greatest weakness, and they would fight to the bitter end. "The Vereth are pulling back," said Lieutenant Torres, Park's second-in-command, his voice filled with both hope and caution. "But they're regrouping. It looks like they're preparing for one last stand." Park nodded grimly. "They won't go down without a fight. But neither will we. This ends today." General Mark Turner had already given the order for Earth's fleet to pursue, and the final offensive was underway. With the alien fleet in retreat, Earth's forces pressed forward, knowing that a decisive victory now would ensure peace, not just for Earth, but for every other world threatened by the Vereth. The remaining Vereth ships were clinging to a massive flagship, Tarnak, their last hope of escape and survival. It was a colossal vessel, bristling with weapons and defenses, a fortress in space. It was their last-ditch attempt to hold off the humans. The battle was fierce, with the remaining Vereth ships attempting to buy time for their flagship to escape. They fought with a desperation that mirrored their early arrogance, but the humans were prepared. The Vereth's shields, weakened by Earth's previous assaults, were no match for the precision and coordination of the Earth fleet. The fighters, equipped with frequency disruptors, swarmed the alien ships like an unstoppable storm. The battle was no longer about raw power. It was about strategy, and humanity had mastered that art. Captain Park's voice cut through the chaos as she gave the command to focus all fire on the Tarnak. "This is it. We take the flagship, and we end this war." The Eclipse and her squadron locked onto the Vereth flagship, unleashing a barrage of energy blasts and missiles. The Tarnak retaliated with its own massive weaponry, shaking the space around them with every shot. But Earth's fleet was relentless, pressing forward with unwavering determination. The frequency disruptors created an opening in the Tarnak's shields, and Park saw the moment she had been waiting for. "Now," she shouted, her voice steady, filled with the calm of someone who knew the battle had already been won. "All units, concentrate fire on their central core." The combined firepower from Earth's fleet concentrated on the heart of the Tarnak, and in a final, brilliant flash of light, the flagship erupted in a massive explosion. The force of the blast sent shockwaves rippling through space, and the remaining Vereth ships, seeing their last hope destroyed, began to flee. For a brief moment, there was silence in the void, a silence that spoke volumes. The war was over. Earth had won. The crew of the Eclipse erupted in cheers, but Park remained stoic, her gaze locked on the debris of the Tarnak, floating in the aftermath of the battle. She knew that this victory had cost many lives. Too many, but it had been necessary. The price of peace was high, but it had been paid in full. Back on Earth, the news spread like wildfire. People poured into the streets, celebrating the unimaginable victory. The world that had once been on the brink of annihilation had now become the symbol of resistance and unity. Nations that had once been divided were now unified in their triumph. The human spirit, tested and forged in the fires of war, had emerged stronger than ever. In the days that followed, Earth began the long process of recovery. The damage was extensive, and the scars of the war would never fully fade. But humanity had proven something essential. They had shown that even in the face of overwhelming odds, they could rise, adapt, and prevail. As Earth's leaders addressed the planet, General Turner spoke with a sense of quiet pride. Today, we stand not just as survivors, but as victors. The Vareth thought they could conquer us. They were wrong. We are not a species to be underestimated. We are the defenders of our world, and we will defend it as long as we breathe. Captain Park, now a legend in her own right, stood at the forefront of the celebration, but she knew that true victory was not just in defeating the Vareth. It was in the unity, resilience, and unwavering spirit of humanity that had brought them to this moment. And as the sun rose over a new, peaceful Earth, one thing was clear. The universe would never forget the power of the human spirit.